One of the things I learned from this week's movie is there is very little difference between children, whether they're age 7 or age 21. I also learned that Willam Dafoe, in many different performances, is my spirit animal. Sean Baker Week continues. This time we are talking about The Florida Project. So right off the top here, I do want to correct something that I said in the last episode. 2 of Sean Baker's films are available on streaming. That's Tangerine, which we talked about in the last episode, and The Florida Project, which we are talking about in this episode. However, his 2012 movie, which was similar, shot in a similar way, written by him, directed by him, edited by him, is called Starlet, or The Starlet, I'm not 100% sure. Doesn't seem to be available on streaming anywhere. I am looking for it, and I would love to do it, and if I find it sometime between recording and when this episode comes out, there will be a third, maybe a bonus Sean Baker movie in between, so this may be a warning for no reason. If you have an opportunity to check out the third movie, The Starlet, or if you find a place where it's available online, let me know. I would love to see it. After seeing 2 of his movies, I am just enraptured by his filmmaking style, the stories that he tells. I gotta say, I got a little bit of a man crush on Sean Baker, which makes me ask myself a few questions. What is it about Baker men that really get me? Also, right off the top here, let's just get the pleasantries out of the way, shall we? The Florida Project is, of course, directed by Sean Baker. It was written by Sean Baker and Chris Berguch. It stars, as I said in the opening, Willam Dafoe in an amazing performance. Probably one of the strongest performances that I've ever seen him in, even though it was so simple. But we'll get into that in a bit. It's also starring Brooklyn Prince in her debut performance, and in fact, the debut performance for a lot of actors in this film. Brooklyn plays Mooney, basically the main child of this group of children that the movie is following. Bria Venate plays her young mother, who is just struggling to get through. It's also starring Valeria Cotto, Christopher Rivera, and Caleb Landry Jones, all of which are in their very first performances. Now, I have to say, I am usually not a fan of movies that involve as a central character a child actor. And I say that with a caveat because I did love Honey Boy, and that had a child actor in the center, and we talked about that just a few weeks ago. But I think it has to be a very special actor or group of actors who center a movie if it's going to be children. Honey Boy was that. And The Florida Project is also that. Mooney and her group of friends and the way that they see the world is enrapturing. And I think I've said on these reviews before, if not, I've definitely said it on the podcast that Corey Baker, not Sean Baker, different guy, and I do every single week, that I wasn't a hugely imaginative kid. I never got lost in a world. I would much rather write a story or tell a story and get you lost in the world I built for you, rather than go and get lost in a world I made up for myself. I never had an imaginary friend. I had an inability to say, let me build a world for me. I can see what's around me. I know we're not in a castle or a fort. I know we are in a big mud hole or in a tree house that is very poorly made, would not pass inspection, and which was probably best classified as a death trap. But I kind of always had the skill, maybe not at the very beginning, but eventually grew into it, what my dad would call the gift of gab. And that's the ability to sit you down and start telling you something so innocuous, but eventually just throw in some details and draw you in. And now I'm telling you a story and you're right with me. And you are pulled into this world that I'm slowly building around you. Kind of like Inception. And The Florida Project is a lot like that. Because not only is Sean Baker incepting you as you watch it, but Mooney and her friends within that inception are also incepting you. Now, you don't see the world as they see it, like whatever imaginary things they're seeing, but what you do see is kind of how a child, a young person with not a lot of experience sees the world from their perspective. And it's real and it's harsh, but to them, it's all they know, so maybe it's not as harsh, maybe it's realer in a lot of ways. And that kind of reminds me of one of the interesting things I learned about the movie while researching, and that's The Florida Project, which is the title of the movie, kind of comes from a duality. Number one, the idea of Mooney's mom just trying to make it every single week, trying to find money to pay rent, find money to keep her fed, keep her safe, and do the basics while also just trying to live her own life. That in of itself is kind of a complicated project. But the Florida Project was also the secret name for Walt Disney World before it had the name Walt Disney World, and it was being built in Orlando. And the Florida Project, the movie, is set in Kissimmee, Orlando area, just off of the grounds of Walt Disney World. And in that way, it really juxtaposes the glamour and the wealth of the tourists that come through and of the parks themselves against this kind of life of squalor and rent by the week hotel rooms, places where every few weeks you have to move rooms to make sure that you don't set up residence, because you don't live here, you're staying here, you pay by the week. And I mean, I think most people have been to Disney World. You've probably seen, you may have even driven past some of these very things, and you didn't see them because all you saw was the glitz and the glamour of Disney. I mean, I think it's one of the things, I mentioned in the Tangerine review that I saw a lot of the places I really knew in LA. I think that this is kind of a similar thing, because if you lived in Kissimmee, if you lived in Orlando, you would see all of those Walt Disney World things all the time, so it wouldn't be as special. But what you would see is the dirtier, the more real aspects of the town. I see that in LA, so I saw it in Tangerine. Can't really avoid it in Tangerine either. But when you're going to Disney World, you can avoid it. So maybe you don't see it. And Florida Project just jams it right in your face. Now, I do want to talk about a few specifics, which may turn into spoilers. So, here's your warning. If you don't want to hear the specifics about the movie, skip down to the second time where we'll get back into the generalities and the overall thoughts about the movie. And you should go ahead and skip forward because the spoilers are about to start right now. So sometimes I really just do things to entertain me, and I don't even know if I did that right because it's been so long since I saw it, but that little gesture was the Disney Channel, if you remember, where you they would have the wand and they would make the little ears and the mouse and then boom, and would change to something else. So hope you guys enjoyed that. That, I will say, if you're watching, that was for you, Sarah. That was a Wild Chats podcast special. Sarah Carreras, that was for you. I feel really bad jumping from shout out to Sarah and the Wild Chats podcast to the spoilers for this movie, because man, it was a heavy movie. And Sean Baker isn't afraid about getting into the heavy stuff. I didn't have any spoilers in the Tangerine review because I did feel like that was just such a bam movie that by doing any spoilers would really give it away. There is so much going on in the Florida Project that some of these little notes that were so heavy and they kind of weighed on me, I don't feel like it gives the whole thing away, and you really should go see it even if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie. But it is really a character study in how the other half lives. And I try not to forget, I think my political inclinations always keep it in the forefront of my mind that I have lived a privileged life. Being a white middle-class cis man in America has done miraculous things for me. Growing up in a two-parent household in a safe, small town in a rural area with parents who probably struggled more than I knew, but didn't make it seem like a struggle. Going to college, going to grad school, all of these things, I have been privileged all the way through my life, from the very beginning to the very end. In fact, I'm starting a new writing project that is kind of not autobiographical, but semi-autobiographical in a kind of fictionalized concept. It's helping me go back and think about stages of my life and all the way through. You can't feel it when you're going through it, but you can see it when you look back, about the bubble that just protects you from all of the bad things in the world around you. So it's especially heavy and especially harsh to see these kids who really should be protected and should be living life the way that I remember life being, playing in my backyard in the in-ground pool that my parents had, and being, shipped off to school by my parents in the morning, and I was a latchkey kid, so I didn't have mom waiting for me when I got home, but knowing that they'd both be back, we'd have dinner at 6, and then watch a little TV, and then homework in bed, and the same thing every single night. And these kids really deserve that. Every kid deserves to have that kind of stability. And just to see the way that these kids thrive without that. And yes, I know it's fiction. But you know that there are kernels of truth in every little bit of this fiction. There are kids living this life all over the place. And this is summer in Florida near Walt Disney World. And the adventures that these kids get into, they come from somewhere very real. And I mean, it hurts a little bit to watch parts of the movie where they are so excited about such simple things, and they see as normal things that you or I would never put up with in real life. It's heart-wrenching, and yet it lifts the spirit at the same time. But when the bus comes through with food and Mooney goes and grabs the bread and the jelly or just some cheese or some chips, and to her it's just like, yeah, this happens, we come. And I'm just like, wow, this is like the one meal you're gonna have today, Mooney, because I know that her mom is thinking like, well, today I don't have to buy dinner, so that's good, right? She doesn't see it. She's protected from it, and that's good. But it's heart-wrenching for you, the viewer. And some of the things that I think we missed when we were kids, like when your mom, when Mooney's mom gets in a fight with Carla, I think it is, from downstairs, and she's not allowed to talk to Scooty anymore. Like, that happened to everybody, right? Like, that our parents got into a fight with other parents, or that we got into like a little spat with another kid, and then all of a sudden the parents decided, you guys can't hang out anymore. And we're ready to get over it, but we can't because our parents won't let that happen. Just like 1,000 little things from childhood that like flare up. And it's the good and the bad, I think. Because in the end, you see how strong these kids are and how they push through all of that. And obviously I'm avoiding like the biggest, hardest thing, which is what won't a mother do to make sure that her child survives? And I think Mooney's mom sets that standard and just says, nothing. There is nothing I would not do in order to give my child the basic necessities and make sure that they are safe and fed and clothed and taken care of. And sometimes that means making bad decisions, but if the decision is between bad and worse, I'll take bad over worse any day. Living on the street versus maybe making some bad decisions, well, that bad decision is better than us being out on our ass, you know? So I was involved in the system for 5 years as an attorney, and it was even more heart-wrenching for me to see, I think it was called DCF show up at their door and like making demands. And when the fight happened and the two parents got into the fist fight, I knew that's exactly what was going to happen. I was like, I have dealt with this situation 1,000 times. I have had clients who are just like, hey, by the way, just so you know, I mean, Department of Family Services is going to call me tomorrow and they're going to do a surprise show because I got into a fight with so-and-so, and that's always what they do. And so as soon as the fight happened, I'm like, well, you messed up now, because here that comes. And assuredly it did. And I mean, I think that's what I like about Sean Baker's work. The writing, the performances, the way it's shot, it's so real. And I said this about Tangerine last time, that I feel like the way that it's shot just draws you into the moment. You're never too far away. There are some big scenes, but it always feels like you're looking at it through the eyes of the character who's actually seeing it. You, the viewer, are not viewing the person in the scene. You're seeing it through their eyes. And it just draws you in. And when you are a part of the story, when you're not just background, when you are in the story, it all feels so much more real. And, I said a few reviews ago, I have infamously not cried at a movie in 2020. Very proud of that thus far. I did cry at 2 Mr. Rogers movies last year. But this probably pushed me as close as I was going to get to that with DCF and Mooney's family and her running away and the way it caught me so off guard for this strong little girl who had never showed any emotion except for anger and spite, to just go to her friend and just break down. Oh, man, it just ripped my heart out. I wanted to jump in the screen and wrap her up in my arms and just tell her it was going to be okay. And that's Sean Baker. That is what he does for you. He gets you in, and then once you're hooked, a lot of you probably haven't been fishing, but the way the fishing works is you don't just throw the pole in and just like let it hang there. Get a little movement going so that the fish thinks it's something alive on the other end of the line. And then right when you feel a little nibble, you don't start reeling it in. What you do is you got to keep moving it, and then you give it one strong jerk. And the jerk is what sets the hook. Once the hook is set, you're really just fighting the fish to get it in. And Sean is really, really good at the hook. You don't know what you're getting into. You're kind of watching. You're in the story. And then, bam, he hits you, and the hook is set. And you're trying not to get as involved in the story as you end up being. But, it's just like these cute little kids and the nudist at the pool and taking such an innocent point of view, but not so innocent. Like 2017 innocent, but not 2005 or 1995 innocent. I had a whole different perspective. I would have not known what was going on with that. But they clearly do. And they're just like making fun of her and making fun of Bobby. I think I identified so much with Bobby that it even drew me into the story more. I mean, I always make fun of the millennials who I have to supervise at work and call them kids because they kind of are kids and they kind of get into the same kind of trouble that the kids in the Florida Project did. But I also in a lot of ways care for them and look out for them the same way that Bobby looks out for those kids. And you want what's best for them. You do the best you can. And that's what I felt like a lot from him. And then there are some times where it's just like, I know you're about to do the thing I told you not to do, and I'm going to have to scold you. And I made a post on social media. You can follow me at Robert N. Cheek, at Everyman Movie for the podcast itself. But there's a moment where Willam Dafoe is just standing there with his arms crossed staring at them. And that moment on screen, that was a moment where I was like, Willam Dafoe is my spirit animal in so many of his characters, because I just felt that moment had really happened in my life. And I think one of the things I've heard about Sean Baker's work that I've heard as kind of a bad thing, but I take as a good thing, is that it tends to skip around. Like, obviously we have the main story, we know where we're going. It's a character piece, so we're really following the people, and it's like a day in the life or a week in the life, and we're seeing the struggles that they go through. But it's more than that too. It's about the isolated incidents are very important, and you know, the possible child abductor that shows up, Mooney's mom, and all the trouble that she gets into, and the tourists that they come into contact with, and the many very different schemes that she runs, and the friends that she has, and the way that they interact with each other. And you know, she's a single mom, so then there's some men around, and some men around for some things, some men around for other things, and just the way that people look out for each other, and then other people are not looking out for them, and the circles we build around each other. It's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and it builds this complex world. I am sorry that it took this long for me to watch both of these movies, to be drawn into Sean Baker's movie universe, and to see the way that he makes film, because now I am really looking forward to whatever he has next. I don't know what it's going to be. I probably should have researched that before we started, but I am down for whatever it is. But we're definitely getting out of spoilers, so let's go ahead and bring everyone back in, and we can wrap up this review really quickly. But the spoilers are over, and everybody's coming back right now. So it's really hard to tell with a Sean Baker movie what is a spoiler and what is not. After you see the movie, if you didn't skip the spoilers, come back and watch the spoiler section, because it's a lot of me just rambling between points, and that happens sometimes, but it doesn't happen often. This one, it's really hard, because it's like I want to talk about that thing, and it's kind of a spoiler, but really it's more about the universe that's being built. I mean, in the end, just to repeat what I had just said at the end of the spoiler section, there are layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. There are isolated incidents that seem isolated, but when you build them into this story, you see how important they are. They're not so isolated. Building a world and drawing you into that world, and then making you feel everything that's happening to the characters. That's not what the Marvel movies are about. That's not what a lot of blockbusters are about. That is what independent film is about. And Sean Baker does such an amazing job in this particular genre. I am jealous. I don't have jealousy for a lot of writers, for a lot of filmmakers, but I am jealous of the skill and the talent that Sean Baker has shown, not only in the Florida Project, but in his earlier stuff that I've seen as well. And being given kind of a bigger budget, a bigger set piece, this entire motel that he can run around in the Florida Project, I'm super excited to see what he has next. I am down for whatever it is. It will be me in the seats, weekend one, supporting that, unless it's at Vail or Sundance, because I can't necessarily go there. Sorry, Sean. But if it's available for wide release, I will be there. If it's not, as soon as it's available on streaming, I will be there. I know I seem to say that about a lot of movies. This is not a sequel. It's not a big budget thing. It's not Jumanji. It's not John Wick. It's not those things that are just like kind of a recipe, rinse, wash, repeat. This is a guy who can just take any small bit of the universe, pluck it out, and then like a seedling, plant it and let it grow somewhere else different, and then draw you into that little corner as it becomes its own world. And that is just a talent worth being jealous over. So let's go through the questions though. Much like Tangerine, Florida Project is a bit of a slow burn. It is a character study, so it's really about the people. If you don't like kids, I don't want kids. I don't mind kids. I like stories about kids, especially really talented kids like these. But if you don't like kids, this is not going to be the movie for you, because it is a lot of high-pitched children laughing and running around and getting into hijinks. If you're not into hijinks kind of movies, this is not going to be for you. Much like Tangerine, bit of a trigger warning for anyone who is worked in the sex industry and anyone who's kind of been through traumatic experiences when it comes to families. Like, it is rough. There's a lot of rough stuff. But if you can get through that, you get to see the highs as well as the lows. There's a movie called Equilibrium from 2002, I think, that I really love, because basically the entire society takes out a medicine, and they've agreed that to cut out the the lowest lows, that they're also willing to give up the highest highs, and that just stay right in the center there. I think in my mind, and again, I haven't had that kind of, I haven't had those experiences, so for me it's a little easier, but I'm willing to take those kind of darkness at the low for the highs that you get to see as well in these exchanges between people. If you're okay with Disney, and it's not really a Disney movie, it's just kind of built around Disney World. If you're okay with story, with character studies that are a little slow to build, and just that, again, that bittersweet sensation that it's heart-wrenching, but a heart-wrenching victory at the end, then I think you're going to like The Florida Project. And I really will repeat exactly what I said about Tangerine. I think that this movie is for everyone. I think everyone will find something to like about this movie. It's got an hour and 40-minute runtime, so it's not going to take up a lot of time. And again, it's available on streaming, so you're going to be able to go watch it right at home. You can pause it and walk away if you want, even though you're not going to want to, because the movie flies by and you're not going to want to miss anything that's happening. Go support independent film. Go support Sean Baker, and check out The Florida Project today. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Everyman Movie Reviews in the books. I want to thank everyone for joining me, as you always do. It's amazing to see all the support that I'm getting for both the podcast and the video forms of these reviews. Right off the top, I want to say a huge thank you to my supporters on Patreon. I could not do this without you. I have a bunch of new equipment. I have even more ordered and on the way, and that is due large in part to my supporters on Patreon. And whether it's just $1 a month or even more significant donations, I appreciate every single one, and I want you to know thank you for everything that you do. Also, the moral support. I get a lot of moral support and messages from people on Patreon, and I really couldn't continue to do everything I do without you. If you want to become one of my patrons, it's super easy. Go on over to patreon.com, that's patreon.com/Robert N. Cheek, and you can support all of the stuff that I'm doing. The Everyman Movie Reviews, the Rob Explains Everything videos, and I got a whole bunch of other stuff coming very shortly, so you're not going to want to miss any of that. And if you want to be a part of it, the books, the videos, the screenplays, everything, go on over to patreon.com/Robert N. Cheek and become a supporter. You can, of course, now find Everyman Movie Reviews on social media. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter and an Instagram. Find us on Instagram at Everyman Movie Reviews. Find us on Twitter at Everyman Movie, and on Facebook at Everyman Movie Reviews. You can find me and my personal accounts at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. That's going to be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere at Robert N. Cheek. You can find these videos and more on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rob Cheek. If you can't get enough of me, well, I do a weekly podcast with my buddy Corey. You can find that at odanthem.com. And of course, you can find it in podcast form on any of your favorite podcatchers, but most importantly at anchor.fm/odanthem. You can also find it at youtube.com/odanthem for the video. And we record every episode live weekly, sometime between Saturday and Monday. If you follow us on social media at odanthem everywhere, you'll get a notification. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, all together at the same time. So come in and join us for the live recording, and then check out the episode on Tuesday. New episodes of this show are every Thursday, and then one in between. Usually it's going to be Sunday, but I can't promise anything, especially recently. So make sure you are checking it out. You can find it anchor.fm/Everyman Movie Reviews. That's where you can find the podcast version of it. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you check out anchor.fm/Everyman Movie Reviews /message, where you can send me a message and let me know what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, that's youtube.com/Rob Cheek. It's the Everyman Movie Reviews playlist. Again, new episodes on both will be available on Thursdays. I didn't get to all the Christmas movies that I wanted to for the 12 days of Christmas, but I saw the movies, I'm going to do the reviews. So now you guys are getting a little bit of Christmas in January as I wrap up those reviews and put those out for you. So keep an eye out for those bonus episodes as well. Thank you, as always, for all your support, for checking out the video. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com, where you can find all of this and more. New episodes of Rob Explains Everything coming soon. New short videos coming soon. A vlog for my trip home coming soon. All of that. Keep an eye out on YouTube and on all over social media. So thank you for joining me. And as always, until next time, have a great week, everybody.